my name is Robin Whitworth, and I'm the facilitator of the Elevated Mother Program. And I say facilitator because I've done this process, and then it came to me one time to put this kind of out as this step-by-step process. And I just thought, I don't even understand how this is going to manifest, but I have learned to just go with it, and I facilitate this process with other people. But I believe it's a process that's out there that many people have gone through. And it's just been so fun to have mothers like the beautiful Sharee Carlisle, who's here with me today, to kind of tailor this to ambitious Christian moms who have like, I have this thing I want to do. And anyway, so we're going to talk about Sharee's experience. She's in the program and she's a couple months in, and it's been fun with Sharee because we've been friends for a couple of years, and just seeing each other's lives, sometimes parallel at times, of things we've been through, things that we've learned. So Sharee, tell me kind of about your situation right now. Give us a picture. Like, are you married? Do you have kids? What kind of environment are you in?
Okay, so I've been married for 20 years. I have two kids, a 14-year-old, and my daughter will turn 7 next month or in May. And we're expecting another one. So I'll have 3 kids spaced 7 years apart. And that was kind of a surprise that I kind of dropped on Robin, where I was like, I need to process this with someone, because we went through infertility for the majority of our 20s and 30s, right? And here I just turned 41 in January, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get my life in order. And I hired Robin in January, like, okay, I'm going to gung ho. And then I found out what within like 3 or 4 weeks, I guess I hired you, and then we started in March. So, and it was like three weeks in, I was like, Robin, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, we just found out we're expecting. I need to process this with someone, because it was not a part of the plan that I had kind of put in place with you in the beginning. And I was like, I feel like this is like a speed bump or something that I need to like slow down and like be able to navigate, but to get over, to be able to still accomplish what I want. And so that's been kind of that's like a shortened version of where we are. But
That's great. So tell me, so before you decided to, get coaching from how I coach and take on the Elevated Mother experience and all that stuff, kind of what was your main challenge in achieving kind of these goals you want to do? And what's the main challenge of feeling that personal peace in your home? Like, what was the biggest thing going on?
So I would say I kind of put a lot of my stuff on hold last year when my mom got sick. So, and then I was taking care of her and taking her to radiation and just spending as much time with her. And so I kind of put a lot of my stuff on the back burner, and I don't have any regrets there. Like, but as she was, coming to the end of her life, I'm like, okay, now what? Now what am I going to do with my life? Because I've just put a lot of it on hold. And grief set in, and I was just like, I need some help here. Like, I need someone to kind of help me. I don't want to say hold my hand, because that's not necessarily your approach, which is great. But I just needed someone to kind of like help, like you said, navigate, like kind of help direct me and be like, hey, I understand you're going through this, like you've got all this going on, but that shouldn't stop you from achieving what you want. And so I feel like that's been such a blessing, because my mindset, I just was so stuck in grief, like just struggling to like function from day to day, and angry. Like I had rages with my kids occasionally where I was just like, just leave me alone. Like, I just need to, be alone. Like, and so this program was just, I think it was more than I expected it to be, because I was just seeking someone like to kind of help me with my personal goals, but it's encompassed so much more than that. It's like not only just working on these little specific things, but it's opened up to like, wow, I I need to allow more grace in my life for what I've gone through and what I've experienced. And just seeing that shift in my mindset and being able to like allow that grace in has really changed a lot of the dynamic in my home too. And I don't feel rage anymore. At least I haven't since I've started this program, where I'm like, okay, I just catch myself hugging and, cuddling with my kids more and being more like sympathetic to them and their feelings and their needs. So as I've been taking care of myself and having my needs and wants and stuff fulfilled, it's translating over to them too, where I am showing up better as a mother. So
That's amazing. Thank you. Did you have any hesitations before signing, enrolling, and anything that you were just like, I don't know?
I think if I had hesitations, it was more with my capability, not yours, because like you said, we've been friends. We've known each other for 4 years, 5 years.
Something, yeah.
I know. I was like, wait, I've been on this journey for 5 years. We've known each other for 5 years, and so I've kind of just been following you, and just kind of watching you and the things that have shifted and changed in your life. And so I didn't have any doubts about you. It was more just like, am I in a good headspace here? Am I in a good place? Am I going to be able to do what needs to be done here? Like, so I think the hesitation was more within, where I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I just lost my mom and I'm kind of an emotional mess. Like, and so the hesitation was within.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that relate with, they don't want to set themselves up for failure. Like, am I up to the task? So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So you did make the decision though. You enrolled, you jumped in, you came in. Like, so what has the experience been like? Like, what's been happening?
So I have seen some shifts, and it's been interesting because a lot of our conversations, like you'll pick up on things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that. Like you mentioned that I have a pattern of like when things get really hard and like I need to dig my heels and like kind of push forward, my perfectionism like kind of steps up and I'm like, oh, that's not how it's supposed to play out. And it's not going to look the way I want it to. And so I kind of just step back and like, instead of pushing forward, I'm like, ooh, I don't think so. Like, this is too hard, or it's not the way I want it to look, or this isn't, and just seeing and having you point that out, like, this has kind of been a pattern for you. Like, you kind of need to get over it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm pretty sure that whole session, I'm not even sure that I heard a lot of what else you said, because I think I was just like, wow, oh my gosh. And I like wrote it down and was like, I do this. That's the pattern that I've never been able to see for myself, is like, because I couldn't understand why when I was so emotional or when I was really struggling with something, that I retreated and like numbed out and like would scroll social media or watch Netflix or like just things like that. So as the pattern, you're like, well, just because it doesn't look perfect, like doesn't mean you shouldn't accomplish it, like the task that I've set forward. And I was like, okay. So I think just having someone else's view about a lot of the things that I've been going through and just kind of watching and being like, hey, this has kind of been a pattern for you. Oh my gosh. So that part has been really eye-opening in a lot of ways. And just being able to bounce things off of you and having even different things that you've said. One of the goals I have is to complete the basement in my house. And I had to adjust that goal because there's another person that I'm married to that's very specific. He's an engineer and he's very specific about how he likes things done in a particular order. And so I had to like, at, per our conversation, you're like, you're kind of placing a lot of this in your husband. And I was like, what? What? Like, well, yeah, we're a team. But then as we started to reevaluate, I'm like, I need a goal that I can accomplish for me. And so being able to step out of that too, where so many of the things that I envisioned for my life are wrapped up in another person, right? And having that where you've been able to step out and say, yeah, that's maybe not the best goal for you because that is reliant on someone else too. And I remember being like, oh, what am I now? Am I gonna do? Like, so being able to adjust some of that too, and being able to put a lot of the things back in my basket, and that was very empowering for me too, was to be able to say, okay, Sharee, what is it that you want? What are you in control of? What can you contribute towards the basement that maybe doesn't line up with the project manager, which is my husband, right? Like,
Yep.
what portion can I do that, and why are you putting so much energy into this in him and what he's doing? Like, what can you do to like move that energy over to what you have control over and what you can do and accomplish? And just even having that little like insight of like, you're spending all this energy like spinning over here, like, why isn't he doing this? And why isn't he like, so just even having somebody that was like, hey, let's kind of shift your energy. I'm like, oh my gosh. And even just that, like just letting that side go and just being like, hey, he's going to do his thing, right? And I don't have control over that. And I've got to stop spiraling in it. And so that also, I feel like has shifted for me to be like, to be able to let go of that control and being like, I'm not in control of that person and what they're doing. And I'm spending all this time, effort, and energy spiraling in this. And my time is better served over here, right? So that was helpful too. So those are probably two big aha in the last, it's only been a couple months, but I feel like those two things have just being able to stop spinning about, my spouse and what he's got going on and just focusing on myself. And it's funny because I tell them that my kids that all the time, where my daughter would be like, well, Riker, he gets to, and I'm like, sweetie, let's just worry about you. Like I teach that to my own children, but I'm still over here trying to, control this situation over here. So, because it's one of my goals, but I'm like, we had to shift and move, and I had to really refocus, which was good. It's been good.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing those things. That's so, so great. And I know there's going to be people watching this that totally relate, because that's the typical symptom of people that come into this, is that they are kind of like, I feel spread thin. Like and a lot of that is they're in so many other people's energies. And it's awesome you could articulate that. So was there anything in the program? So you got in, you started, like, things are happening. Is there anything in the program that surprised you, or pieces to the program? So we have like online content, we have classes, we have hot seat, we have the one-on-ones. Anything in there that you didn't know would be there, something that you found value in? I don't know.
I don't think I realized that you were going to have guest speakers, and I have loved that. Like, just having that different, like, kind of eye-opening shift. Does that make sense? Like, I'm trying to put in the right words, but having those people just come in and point out different little things that, like, you're amazing, but adding additional people that have different insight has been so helpful. And being able to like see that perspective from somebody different, or a different modality, right? Like the energy work or things like that. So just being able to take those guest speakers and learning from those people, and being able to, kind of link arms with a lot of the people within the community too. and being able to see some of their shifts and changes has been so inspiring to me too, to just kind of watch. I mean, I need to be better about commenting in there in that specific group, but like their stories are inspiring to me too, and being able to kind of watch everyone shifting and growing at the same time. I don't want to say surprised me, because I feel like that's what we're here for, but it's been enjoyable to kind of link arms with some other people and just be like, okay, we're in this together, like no judgment, helping move forward. So I'd say those are probably two of the things that maybe I wasn't necessarily expecting that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, someone else from our group mentioned it felt like with the guest speakers, like a second witness, like that what I'm saying or different things is still the process. Like and then adding the tools to the tool belt. So I'm glad, I'm happy to hear it, but like, it's fun to hear your perspective from that. So is there any one specific, I mean, you talked about shifting the energies, you talked about the pattern finding, but is there one specific result, like something happening with one of your goals, a specific moment, like where you could tell that you've changed? Like you had a different thought, there's a specific result that happened that you're like, hey, like something's happening in my life.
One specific. So I think what's one thing that I probably haven't been as consistent at, but being able to record myself, because I don't necessarily love to watch myself on video or like listen to my own voice, but recording myself saying the affirmations that we started kind of with, and then being able to add a few more and listening to my vision, going through that, being able to get that like flowing, and listening to it and hearing those words and being able to be like, yeah, that is my goal. As I started writing out my vision, it just started flowing, and it just felt so good to do it. Like I'm kind of a procrastinator. I'm working on that, right? Like that's one of the things I'm working on. But it took me a while because I kept going back to, this isn't looking exactly how I want it to, and so just being able to like really sit down. I mean, I wrote it on a notebook first before I put it in my planner, because that's the perfectionist in me, right? I had to write it out somewhere else first. But just being able to sit down, and then since I've recorded it and been listening to it daily and those types of things, like it really is such a good reminder to me about what direction I'm going, where I'm headed, and what type of goals that I have going forward for my life. So that's been extremely helpful. And I have seen a little bit of the shifts with that, just being more at ease with kind of the flow of life, like a little bit more. So
That's great. And I'm so glad you recorded yourself and like did it. Like it's a little bit different to hear it in your own voice, but there's something in there that like you hear yourself and it's like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. Oh yeah, that's how I feel. So let me ask, I have two more little questions, but when you talk about those shifts and you talk about being able to move forward with that, and you talk about those feelings of, I am moving forward, like this is what I'm doing, what does that mean to you? Having those things going, like, what does it mean to you? Why does it matter?
So I have felt so stagnant for probably about 3 years since my dad passed away. I kind of just felt kind of stagnant, and I've had moments where I have a little bit more momentum, and then I get going, and then something else kind of comes up, and so I just have felt so stagnant for so long, especially this past year, just trying to kind of survive a little bit, and so having that focus and having some direction and being able to kind of structure my days and just even having that community of people and, you know, watching other people kind of shift and change, that I feel like it's not just me alone. Like, if that makes sense, like for so long, I just felt alone in how I was feeling, um, and how I was like procrastinating, how I wasn't feeling motivated, how I was not being able to like shift things that I wanted to do, and directions I wanted to go. Like, we had mentioned, like you had talked in one of the classes about how you planted like so many seeds, but you never really watched them all grow. And like really put time, effort, and energy into one seed to kind of watch it grow. And that was another probably aha moment for me, because I was like, oh, I do that. Like, I have my hand in all these things that I've put out there that I want to do and that I want to accomplish, but I haven't really sat with one and watched it really start to finish grow. And so having that shift of feeling that more motivated, more like inspired to take more action, to move forward and not feel like I'm stuck back here. So did that just that
Great.
makes sense. I think at
Whatever
some point
you
I was like,
say is the
okay,
right
where
thing.
was I going with this?
You're talking about the meaning of things. Like, why does it even matter? You know, like that's
Yeah.
happening. So if there's and I know there is, but if there's a mom that's in a similar situation with you, whatever. She's got a couple kids, like her husband's working, she's got these big goals, she's thinking about doing this program. What is one thing you would say to her?
Jump.
Jump.
I say just do it. Like, if you even have an inkling of like, you know, I'm interested, but I'm not sure how this will work out, like, just trust the process. Like, trust that Robin knows what she's doing.
Mhm.
Trust that, you know, like, trust in yourself too, like that you are capable of being able to make shifts, even though no matter what your past says, no matter, you know, how long it's taken you. I mean, like I said, I've been on this journey for 5 years with you, and I still sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm starting over in some ways, but I know that I have shifted and changed. And I feel like even more so in the last couple months, I've been able to see that shift and change, and feeling more accomplished and being able to move towards the goals that I have had for those 5 years, that I just haven't had the right support. And so this support is there. The community is there. The accountability is there. Like, you know, it's not like all rainbows and, you know, like unicorns and all, like, it's not necessarily like this beautiful process. Like I said, that session you pointed some stuff out, and then I pretty sure I just sat there like thinking about that and just being like, wow, like almost like, oh gosh, that I didn't know, and that kind of hurt, right? But so I think it's just, as long as you're aware, like, it's a process, and you're going to be able to shift and move, but it's not going to always look beautiful and pretty, and my little perfectionist self wants certain things, and it's just been like, okay, I just got it done. It didn't look pretty. My vision drawing didn't look beautiful and elaborate like I wanted to, but I got it done, and it's hanging on my wall, like in my bathroom. And so just do it. Like, just, I promise somehow it will work out, and you'll be able to shift the things that maybe you feel are not moving right now. So
That's awesome. I know someone else being interviewed, and whoever's watching this, you may have watched the other interview. She was like, you know, the first few weeks were really hard. Having a lot of things like being pointed out and a lot of stuff in any of those sessions, and they come up, like, we have to get real with where we are so that we know where we got to go. And but I'm grateful you're able to articulate that and give hope that that is the process, that it has to happen, and that it will all turn out okay.
But I really do, I mean, knowing you and knowing how you are, that's what I was hoping for. Like knowing that you wouldn't sugarcoat, that you would give it to me straight, because I'm sure I have enough people in my life that sugarcoat and are like, oh no, you're great, you're wonderful, you're grieving, it's fine, take your time, where you're just like, how much do you want to shift and move? Like, I understand you're grieving, but that doesn't mean that you can't take one small piece of your goal and start moving forward. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I really do. That is something I really highly value in you, is that you have a way of saying things without what's the word? Like the way that you word things is not unkind. It's just like the truth. And that's what 99% of this world needs, right? Is people that are willing to tell them the truth, even if sometimes that doesn't always look like rainbows and unicorns. So
Well, and they come into this program because their life isn't rainbows and they're wondering why. And so to be able to take the leap and get in and just be like, hey, let's dig in. Let's dig in. So that's wonderful.
I'm excited for the direction I'm going, even though it's been difficult and there's been a little, speed bumps and hardship within myself, not anything that you've specifically done, but just little things like when it gets hard, digging in my heels instead of retreating, and being able to realize, those things that I can keep moving forward. And even so, like, I love the celebrate, wins Wednesday. Even though there's been a couple of times where I'm like, oh, I don't have anything to share. I'm growing a baby and I have hardly functioned for a while. So, but then just feeling like saying that, and you're like, well, why didn't you put that in there? I'm growing a baby here, people, and just being like, I am growing a baby. Like, so having even just those little, things where you're just like, it doesn't have to be big, Sharee, like it can be anything. And I'm like, it's true. So that's been fun too. Just those little things, the little added things that you've put in there that have just added the little touches.
The frosting. There has to be frosting after the bitter moments, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to meet with me and to think through these thoughts and to share this with, I don't know how many people will watch this, but I appreciate you being willing and everything that you're doing. You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.